glasses. It's okay. Welcome to Last Call, 6 p.m. right here on Monday night. Graham Shear, it's Caden Colford, and Jace Hodge. We got all of the hottest and latest sports topics for you coming up for the next half hour. So, guys, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the NFL, and we're going to start with the Indianapolis Colts. It was a fun day yesterday, guys. It was a really fun game. The Colts took on the Tennessee Titans, and it ended out being a really great game.
Absolutely. I mean, the Colts got the win, a big divisional win, too, and the first time beating the Titans in 3 years. It's been a long time coming, and a home game, too. They hadn't won a home game since last year in November. It's been a long time coming for this win.
Yeah, and what were we going to say, sorry?
You know, you're breaking, or it was a gridlock here in the AFC South. Every team was sitting at 2-2 coming into this week, so every win, especially against a divisional rival, is absolutely huge. I saw a lot of things I liked from Indianapolis. I think a new wide receiver one is coming out of the mix, and Josh Downs, seeing him go to work.
Oh, yeah, great game for him.
I mean, the running game is finally starting to get going, take a little bit of pressure off Zach Moss. We saw with the back switching in and out, Zach Moss really flourished, even in the presence of Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
And speaking of Josh Downs, I mean, you kind of watch him, he kind of reminds you of a T.Y. Hilton, you know, in his young stage in his career.
Right.
He has that speed, you know, that short receiver kind of speed, and he's a really good receiver so far for the Colts in his rookie season.
You just saw Zach Moss trotting into the end zone. He had 23 carries for 165 yards and a couple touchdowns yesterday. But the big story was Jonathan Taylor, who signed on Saturday morning. He also played yesterday, unlimited touches, only 6 carries yesterday. But Jace, what did you see from him? What did you like?
I mean, he was still, you know, he's still that big running back that you can, you know, push the entire defense back. He had a few carries here and there that he did that. I mean, obviously, first game back on a pitch count, it's going to be tough to really do anything as a running back, but I'm sure he'll get more involved over the future games.
And I think you got to take your health into account when you're throwing a guy back out there who hasn't seen the field in over a year. Obviously, Zach Moss, I mean, he's able to carry the weight right now, but if you ease Jonathan Taylor back in, let him knock the rust off, let him get his body back into things, let him get his mind back into things, his chemistry with the offensive line, you really have two backs that can do a lot of damage, and them switching back and forth is going to be very, very well for Indianapolis.
Jace, Anthony Richardson went down again.
He did.
He's already been injured several times already this year, a concussion, some other stuff as well. Now dealing with another injury on what was a running play, but no worries. Minshew Mania steps in, and they get the win. The Colts, they knock off the Titans 26-23, and they take, I think, they're tied with the Jacksonville Jaguars for first in the AFC South. But what do you make of Anthony Richardson's injury?
I mean, it's tough to see. It's because it's 3 of his 4 games now he's played and he's gotten hurt. Got in at the end of the game in week 1. Obviously had the concussion week 2 against Texans. And now here in week 5, that shoulder injury. And you could tell immediately it didn't look good. I mean, second run of the game, I mean, these design quarterback runs are consistently injuring him. So you got to think when he comes back, does Shane Steichen take out, you know, those QB runs and have more pass designs for him?
I think you also bring up the question, is Anthony Richardson the starter when we come back, especially if the Colts are still in a good spot in the AFC South? Gardner Minshew playing efficient football the way that he is AR really the guy that you want coming back, just throwing the offense off game in, game out? And that's no disrespect to AR. This guy shows flashes of superstar potential, but Gardner Minshew, he's playing his role well. The Colts are successful as of right now, so I can't see the Colts just switching back and forth. I think Gardner Minshew's a move.
But in the press conference last night after the game, Gardner even said this is Anthony's team no matter what. Yeah. So Gardner obviously has respect for that this is AR's team for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be talks about shutting down Richardson when he comes back because he's already been injured 3 times already so far this year. It's been a struggle to watch, and he's looked good in the games he's played. But tell me how important is it to have a guy like Minshew, a good backup quarterback, to lead this team?
It's huge. I mean, I don't know if anyone saw the post game in the locker room, how fired up he was. He is a leader on this football team, and it's really showing. He's 3-0 in the games he's played so far, and he's one of the most accurate QBs you'll see, especially as a backup quarterback. It's huge to have a guy like Gardner in the locker room.
I feel like it's a consensus around the NFL that this guy is the best backup quarterback in the National Football League, and the reason why, he's just efficient. Right, 11 for 14. He's not necessarily slinging 60-yard passes all the way through the air like Patrick Mahomes, but he can come in and manage a game. He can run the clock. He can manage his offensive line, get to his weapons. And that's why people say he's the best backup.
Yeah, a lot like Brock Purdy, doesn't have the arm strength but has the accuracy. Minshew, 11 for 14 yesterday, 155 yards, and the Colts, they get the win, and they are tied atop the AFC South. Let's talk some Bears football and the Washington Commanders on Thursday night this week. And the Bears, guys, got a big win. Finally, they get over the hump in a big way.
And I was not expecting this. I mean, last year the Commanders and Bears played in the same scenario on a Thursday Night Football. It finished 12-7 Commanders. So for this game to finish 40-20, I was not prepared for this at all. Justin Fields, though, had a crazy game. And I'm a Justin Fields hater. I will admit that. I don't see anything in him as a franchise quarterback, but he had a really good game passing.
And
DJ Moore, we saw him catch 2 in a row. This entire Bears team coming off the sad death of Dick Butkus, it seemed like they had something just throwing them through this entire game. They were on something. This Bears offense was clicking on all cylinders. Given it's the Commanders, they're not exactly the Chiefs, but they're not the worst team in the league either. They aren't the Panthers.
Yeah, they certainly rallied. And DJ Moore, he said 8 receptions, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jace, how do the Bears keep this going?
It's going to be tough. I mean, with teams like the Lions in your division, too, that have looked so strong. The Packers, too, they have a good defense. I just don't know if they can keep it going with Fields as a quarterback. And, I mean, they don't have many weapons. All they have is DJ Moore, really. And if he gets hurt, what happens then? It's going to be tough to keep up as the Bears team that doesn't have much talent.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on. What was one of probably the best game yesterday went down to the wire. The Texans and the Atlanta Falcons. And another great game, maybe not one that you would have expected. Not two teams that you would expect great offensive showings from, but both teams played well, and it ended up going down to the wire.
And Stroud has surprised me so far. Still no interceptions through his first 5 games. And no other quarterback's ever done that in his rookie season. So this is phenomenal to see from Stroud as a rookie quarterback. He's definitely been the best of the 3 rookies so far. And he had a good game here, even though they lost.
I don't know if we expected this much. We saw the talent at Ohio State, but that's working with All-Americans at everywhere you look, at one of the best universities in the country when it comes to football. Now he's playing for Houston, and I'm not sure there are many avid football fans out there that could name 4 big weapons on Houston, right? But he's making the most of it. This guy's taking what defenses are giving him. He's making great plays, efficient plays, smart passes. He looks like a veteran, and he's only played 5 games in the league.
And, I mean, if you've seen what he's done so far with rookie Nico Collins, the receiver from Michigan, them two have linked up time and time again so far, and they have become one of the best duos in the NFL in a quick time.
And guys, what do you make of Bijan Robinson? Had a first great couple of weeks, 3 weeks in a row, and now the last 2 weeks kind of slowed down a bit. Do you think it's fluky, or do you think this is more of what we're going to see?
I think it's fluky. I mean, I think he's one of the best backs in the league right now. I mean, you see his speed, you see his agility. That guy, he is a fast running back, and he'll be really good as long as he stays healthy.
I think it's hard to scout rookies out of college just because the game is so different. The physicality is so much different, and the transformation that these guys go through during training camp, during the offseason, coming out of the draft is wild. So I think teams are starting to figure out what he does well, what he doesn't do so well. But Bijan, I mean, it seems like every other day someone's pulling me aside saying, wow, look what this guy did. Look how many tackles he broke in this play. I think he gets past that. Teams are just starting to figure out, his stride, what he's doing out there.
We'll take a quick break and come back. We'll talk more NFL and some MLB a little bit later on. Stick around. It's Last Call.
Who may have high-functioning autism, may have ADHD, processing challenges, working memory issues, sensory integration issues, those types of challenges. It's a place where human beings are valued, children are respected. It's a progressive school that takes a hands-on approach to education.
Welcome back to Last Call. Caden, we'll talk some more NFL. A lot of great games yesterday, but we'll start with Sunday Night Football. It was the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And Caden, the San Francisco 49ers got it done again in a big way. The 49ers look excellent.
I mean, getting it done, it's almost an understatement, right?
Yeah.
We come into Sunday Night Football. These looked like two of the best teams in the NFL, and I think the 49ers made a statement coming out and saying that these teams aren't close, and it showed on the scoreboard. But when you have a guy like this, Christian McCaffrey, who's a guaranteed touchdown every game, what are you supposed to do as a defense? I mean, you have Doomsday Dallas, who has one of the best defensive sides of the balls in the country, and they can't stop this offense. I don't know how anyone goes against the 49ers.
Yeah, San Francisco certainly looked like what might be the favorite in the NFC yesterday, because Dallas was a team that is probably going to at least be in the consideration at the end of the season in their division, possibly a division winner and one of the best teams in the NFC, and the 49ers just absolutely dominated them.
Well, it didn't help that Dak Prescott was out there.
Yeah.
He was acting like a goofy goober the entire time under center. This guy was sacked 3 times. He threw 3 interceptions. He was making 0 right decisions. Of course, his offensive line wasn't giving him much help, but still, you want to see more out of someone who's always hanging around that MVP talk for reasons still to be specified.
Yeah. 42-10 final. Let's move on and talk another one of the best games from yesterday. The Bengals, they finally get back in the winner's circle, Caden, and they take down the Cardinals, who have also looked pretty good so far, but a 34-20 final. And Ja'Marr Chase, tell me about him.
Ja'Marr Chase, he's open. He's always blanking open. That's what this guy said last week, and we saw it here today. I think Joe Burrow got the message. Joe Burrow, a guy that's been knocking off some rust, coming out of a calf injury at camp. He's starting to come into full force, and Ja'Marr Chase doing the exact same thing. Those two clicking on all cylinders.
15 catches for Chase, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 52 fantasy points, the most that any player has had so far this season. Ja'Marr Chase got the Bengals, and Joe Burrow as well looked strong yesterday. The Bengals get back in the winner's circle, and they're now back to 2-3, just 1 game back in the AFC in their division.
A slow start, but looking at the Cardinals, we've seen some highs and lows from them too. There's games where Josh Dobbs looks like an all-NFL player, and then there's games, he didn't have a terrible game, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, where he kind of looks like a backup.
Yeah. Let's move on, and we are going to talk the Dolphins and the Giants. Another game, but Miami, who has only lost 1 game so far this year. The Dolphins looked, again, excellent. Tyreek Hill, he's a lock to have a good game, it seems like. But Devon Achane, he has really come out of in his rookie year. He's come out of Texas A&M, and he has made a name for himself so far.
And it's crazy to watch because where did this guy come from?
Right.
It seems like just a couple weeks ago he had 4 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden here's this Achane kid that is already cementing himself as arguably, hot take here, but maybe a top 10 back in the league the way that he's been running all over defenses in the past couple weeks.
Achane has scored 7 touchdowns so far through his opening 5 games. He didn't even get a single touch in the first game. But so basically 7 touchdowns in 4 games. That's the most that any rookie has scored through their opening 5 games of their rookie year. Devon Achane, he is probably one of the fastest players in the league, and he keeps up with Cheetah.
And that's hard to do for anybody. And Miami, their entire offense, entire defense is fast. Entire program's fast. You have a young head coach on that squad. I mean, a young core.
Yep.
I mean, I don't see where this team can go wrong.
Yeah, this Dolphin offense is electric. Let's move on and talk another electric offense, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. Cooper Kupp back for the Rams, and he looked pretty good yesterday.
Cooper Kupp, it's good to see him coming off an injury as well. But this guy's been around the block, especially as a receiver. He's a nightmare for defenses, a nightmare for fantasy owners playing against him. And like you said, very good to see him get involved.
Yeah, it was a great game overall. The Eagles end up getting the win, 23-14. Jalen Hurts looks good again, 303 yards through the air. DeAndre Swift, he came over from the Lions, didn't have that great of a stint there, just a handful of years. A lot of injuries backed up into that, but he's came over to Philadelphia and really helped the offense, I'd say.
DeAndre Swift, I say he's a boom or bust, at least in the run game. But when this guy booms, it is crazy. He can have a top 2 performance any given week, and that's hard as a fantasy owner trying to figure out when to play him, when not to play him. But as a back, this guy's ceiling is crazy. He's fast. He fits with this offensive scheme. They want to run the ball. They want to pound it up the middle. Swift can do just that.
Let's talk the rest of the NFL scores from yesterday. We'll start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who played their second straight game in London over in the UK. They took down the Bills 25-20. Just as soon as Buffalo started to look like a contender, they won 3 straight. But they go to London, and they did not look very strong, Caden.
No, not really. But you got to think, Jacksonville, they've been to London year after year, and that's not exactly the 5-hour drive to Quincy that we might have. They're going across the Atlantic Ocean, so jet lag is definitely a real thing for this team. I'm not saying it's a fluke. I think the Jags are a very, very solid team with an electric offense at times, but I think it's something to consider going across an entire ocean to play a football game.
The Lions and the Panthers, 42-24. Detroit gets it done. The Lions, they continue looking like a contender as well. Jahmyr Gibbs was out yesterday, but they have a strong offense as well, kind of similar to the Miami Dolphins.
Lions in the NFC North, that's a division that I'm not sure who's going to come out of.
Yeah.
And I think it's been like that since the beginning of the season. Packers, Lions, the Bears, I mean, if they play like they did this past week, I could see them climbing the rankings. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the Vikings, also the 4th team in that division, haven't looked strong as well. The Lions definitely have that division for the taking. The Saints dominated. They beat up on the New England Patriots yesterday, 34-0. Not much else to talk about with that game. The Steelers, they won a very tight game against division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. They tie Baltimore for the division lead.
Baltimore, I don't know what's going on. I don't think they do either. They just can't find anything to work. They're throwing guys around at different spots, and losing to a team like the Steelers is not a great look, especially when you want to play competitive football at the end of the season.
Steelers get the 17-10 win against the Ravens. They tie them. They're both 3-2 so far on the season. Let's move on. 2 more games to talk about. The Jets beat the Broncos, a close one, but 31-21. And then the Chiefs, Taylor Swifty Town. The Chiefs get a 27-20 win on the Minnesota Vikings. And KC has won 4 straight games now. They've looked pretty strong as well. 4 teams were on a bye this week. The Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers, as well as the Seahawks and the Buccaneers. Let's talk 2 teams that play tonight. Some Monday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers from the NFC and the Las Vegas Raiders from the AFC. Davante Adams is making his return to Green Bay. Should be a fun one.
And I think it's very, very interesting because on the other side of the ball, you have Jair Alexander, who you better believe those two have been matched up time and time again for years. If anybody knows how to play Davante Adams, it's Jair Alexander. But it's Davante Adams, right? This guy is a top 3 wide receiver in the league when he wants to be. And if the Raiders get cooking, this Packers secondary definitely has some weak spots.
Who do you think wins that matchup, the Packers or the Raiders?
I think the Packers. I think the Packers take it, but anything can happen in the NFL.
I think the Packers get it done as well. Jordan Love, he's looked too strong so far. We'll take a quick break, though. When we come back, we'll talk some NCAA football and can't forget about the MLB playoffs. It's last call. See ya.
We'll leave it to our actual athletes. Watch UND-TV's live sports broadcast on GLV-CSN and YouTube.
The first time I went to Lucas Oil was last year for the 6A Center Grove versus Carroll State High School football game. And I walk in this time thinking I know what's going on, thinking I know what's going to happen. And if I were to say that Lucas Oil lost any effect on you, just the pure vastness that it hits you when you walk in, I'd be wrong. And Jace put it perfectly. He walked in and said, wow, this is the dream. And it is, because the people that we look up to listen to a high school football game of the week on WICR HD3 UND Radio.
Back on Last Call, let's talk some NCAA football. We'll stay right here in Indiana for right now, though. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they get beat up on by the Louisville Cardinals. The Cardinals were ranked number 25, Notre Dame up there as well, but Notre Dame, they've lost 2 games now, and they have started to fall down the rankings, Caden.
And, you know, I can kind of feel for Notre Dame when they're playing ranked opponent after ranked opponent after ranked opponent, it seems like. But at some point, if you want to be competitive come the end of the season, you have to beat ranked opponents. That just comes with the territory of being an elite team, and it seems that they just haven't been able to do that.
They were ranked number 10 in this game, but they lose to the Cardinals, and they fall all the way back to 21st. They'll be on the road this week. Actually, sorry, they'll host USC, who's now ranked number 10, and honestly, I think USC gets the win there.
I think so too. Hartman didn't have his best showing. Obviously, USC's defense probably not as strong as what we saw here against Louisville, but not looking good for things up in South Bend.
Let's move on and talk some Oklahoma and Texas, the Red River game, one of the most electric atmospheres in college football. Oklahoma and Texas, what a fun game this was.
Fun in every single way. We saw defensive highlights, offensive highlights. Everything was going on in special teams, and these teams were going back and forth, taking punches on the chin and delivering one right back. And you never know what you're going to see next in this game, and those are definitely the most fun to watch.
The Red River game, what a spectacle. It's been played since 1929 between Texas and Oklahoma in some exciting, extremely fun matchups over the course of the years, the Sooners and the Longhorns. It's a state fair of Texas tradition since 1929. It's always played at a neutral site in Dallas. It's about midway point from Austin, where Texas is at, and Norman, Oklahoma. And this one did not disappoint either. Oklahoma scores a last-second touchdown, and with just about 14 seconds left, a great finish to the game. Oklahoma gets the win, 34-30. We'll talk some UIndy football now, and the Greyhounds get another great win. They're still undefeated. They take down the Cardinals on Saturday of William Jewell.
And they made it look very easy. Gavin Sukup's still doing what he's doing. They had to fill a hole in Alonzo Derrick out with a leg injury, right? But to see them put a pounding on William Jewell like they did, this team, I think, is the best team in the conference. They'll have a chance to prove it this next week.
Big game this Saturday over in Missouri, in Kirksville, Missouri. The Greyhounds will take on the Bulldogs of Truman State. This might be what ends up being the GLVC title game, Caden.
Essentially, right? It's always these two teams at the top. And look back to the GLVC kickoff before the season even started. You have Coach Keevers going in there with Kendall Brown and Landry Mavungu. And talking to the guys from Truman State, there's a mutual respect there. They know that at some point in the season, there's going to be a dogfight between these two teams. It's always competitive. Last year was in the snow, one of the most fun games to be on the call for. It was a great one. I hope it's just like it was last year.
Fun games, especially this weekend with the Greyhounds and the Bulldogs. Let's move on and quickly talk some MLB. The playoffs are going on right now, and in the ALDS, the Texas Rangers, they're hot. 25 runs, I should say, in 4 games so far. They swept the Rays, who seemed like one of the best teams in baseball this year. They lead 2-0 over the Baltimore Orioles right now.
I think the Rangers kind of came out of nowhere on behalf of their pitching staff this year. But hey, Adolis Garcia coming in, doing some work at the plate. They're playing a Baltimore team that's young. And the thing about young guys, young, inexperienced guys, they're just cocky enough to come into this and with that 2-0 deficit, come back, maybe get something going. But I think the Texans, with the commanding lead they have, keep going.
The Houston Astros are tied 1-1 with the Minnesota Twins elsewhere in the ALDS series. The Astros, who won the World Series last year, that should be a fun series there. Let's talk some NLDS, though, and we'll start with the Atlanta Braves, who led the whole majors with 104 wins this year, but they find themselves down 1-0 to the Phillies in their series right now, and that game's going on right now, Caden.
This might be the most fun series in the entire playoffs, excluding the World Series. Going on right now, Philly holds a 1-0 lead over Atlanta. Philly, one of those teams where you look at the lineup, they're not necessarily all pro guys, but their guys can get hot, do some damage. Nick Castellanos. The scary thing about Philly, they swept Miami, 2 games, wiped them out of the playoffs, and Bryce Harper didn't have a great series.
Right.
So if he gets going, the Braves could be on their heels. Even though they lead the MLB in wins, Phillies are coming.
And the Dodgers also find themselves behind 1-0 in that series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who swept the Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee in both games, swept them off the map, and the Diamondbacks looking pretty strong right now.
Diamondbacks are strong, but just taking a look at this Dodgers offense, their lineup, there's too many all-stars to drop this series. Right. You have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. Pitching staff, I think, is where they've taken a downgrade this season. I think that's where Arizona capitalizes on this. If the Dodgers fall, I think it's due to their pitching staff. But Arizona, they snuck one out with that lead. It makes things a lot easier on them.
Dodgers also lost to the Padres last year in the National League Division Series. The Diamondbacks are hot right now, so look out for them. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and coming back, we'll have Monday football forecast coming up next on Last Call.
There's often a moment when you're helping somebody with math where they just suddenly get over that little barrier and they get it. It's a nice aha moment, and I really like being involved in helping students achieve that moment, and we do get a lot of those here in the tutoring lab.
The first time I went to Lucas Oil was last year for the 6A Center Grove versus Carroll State High School football game. And I walk in this time thinking I know what's going on, thinking I know what's going to happen. And if I were to say that Lucas Oil lost any effect on you, just the pure vastness that it hits you when you walk in, I'd be wrong. And Jace put it perfectly. He walked in and said, wow, this is the dream. And it is, because the people that we look up to listen to a high school football game of the week on WYCR HD3 UND Radio.
Back on Last Call, and it's time for our Monday football forecast. It's been a fun few weeks here, and we'll take a look at our records later, but right now we'll focus on Thursday night football of this week. It's the Broncos in Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. A fun matchup. Caden, who you got?
I think this one's pretty simplistic in nature. Give me the Chiefs. Arguably the best team in the NFL taking on the worst team in the NFL, who cannot catch a break. Sean Payton cannot catch a break. He lost to the very coach that he was trashing last week. They lose again.
I'm also taking the Chiefs. I think Kansas City gets this one done as well. Should be a fun matchup, but I think the Chiefs stay high. They win their 5th straight game, and I think the Chiefs, they're making another Super Bowl run this year, I think.
And they have all the weapons to do so. It's the same. They bring the same system year in, year out. Right. And a lot of teams can't say that. A lot of personnel changes. But the thing about Andy Reid and this Patrick Mahomes offense, they keep everything in a nucleus. And it comes back year in, year out. Defenses still cannot find a way to get a grasp on it. And I don't see anybody doing that.
How about Sunday Night Football? Let's move on and talk the Giants in New York to take on the Buffalo Bills. Caden?
I think it's a similar story to our last game, right? Bills, even coming off of a win or a loss in London against the Jags, they're going to get this one done against the Giants.
I think the Bills also get this one done. Buffalo has another great game. They get to 4-2 on the year. They take the lead in the AFC in their division. And now let's talk the Colts game. The Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Colts and Jags, another fun game, a rematch from Week 1. Who you got?
I think it's going to look very, very similar to Week 1. Give me the Colts. Got my hat over there on the helmets. Oh, my goodness, that looks so good. Thank you, Kenneth, for doing that.
Cowboy
Give me the Colts.
Caden.
We might disagree on this one, might not. What do you got to say?
I think I'm taking the Jags. I think the Jags get this one done. Should be another fun game, but in Jacksonville, I think the Jags come out on top. I want to take a quick look at our records over the first few weeks of the season. A fun few weeks it's been so far. We're coming into Week 6 right now. Take a look at that.
We'll be back.
Caden.
We'll be back.
Woo!
Don't worry. 3-3 don't mean nothing yet. It's a long season. We'll be back.
Yeah, should be another fun week. Week 6 coming up here. It'll be a great week. Which matchup are you looking forward to most?
Anything the Colts play.
Yeah.
Gotta say,
They're looking good so far.
I like what they're doing. I think if Gardner stays under center,
Yeah.
I think the Colts can do big things.
Right.
I mean, we go back to the question on whether Anthony Richardson should sit behind Gardner. I'm obviously hindsight's 2020. I think he should take a seat behind Gardner. Gardner's doing big things. Colts are winning because of it.
Colts fans weren't expecting much this year, but the Colts, they find themselves atop the AFC South, tied with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They will move down to Jacksonville. This will give them sole place of the division if they win that. Join us next week on Last Call. No show, next week due to fall break. Join Kane and I on October 23rd for the latest on everything sports on Last Call.